In the spring of 2022, NASA engineers opened up the latest batch of data from Voyager 1 and found something that made absolutely no sense. Not silence, not a dead signal. Something arguably stranger, a steady stream of information that looked like it was coming from a machine having a complete breakdown, readings that didn't correspond to any state the spacecraft could actually be in, despite every other indication, showing Voyager 1 was healthy, functioning, and doing exactly what it was supposed to be doing. This is the story of one of the strangest technical mysteries in the entire Voyager program, a spacecraft that appeared to be talking gibberish for months, and the surprisingly simple explanation engineers eventually uncovered after a painstaking months-long investigation conducted across a communication gap of nearly a full day each way. Stick around, because the actual explanation behind this glitch is a genuinely satisfying piece of detective work, and if you want to catch every update on this remarkable decades-old spacecraft, go ahead and hit follow before we get into it. To understand why this particular malfunction was so unsettling, you first need to understand exactly what system was involved and why it matters so much to the mission. Voyager 1 relies on something called the Attitude Articulation and Control System, or AACS, to keep its high-gain antenna pointed with extreme precision directly at Earth. Given that Voyager 1 sits well over 14 billion miles away, even a small pointing error could mean the difference between a clear, usable signal and no communication at all. The ACS doesn't just control the antenna's orientation, it also constantly reports back detailed telemetry about its own health and status, giving engineers on the ground a continuous readout, confirming that the system is working correctly. Essentially, a running diagnostic report on one of the most critical systems keeping the entire mission connected to Earth. Starting sometime around March or April of 2022, that diagnostic report stopped making sense. Instead of clear, structured telemetry describing the AACS's actual status, engineers began receiving what NASA officials later described, in a public statement, as data that appeared to be randomly generated information that didn't reflect any state the AACS could actually plausibly be in. It wasn't simply noisy or degraded data, the kind of gradual signal decay you might expect from an aging spacecraft. It was structured nonsense, readings that looked deliberately formatted, but described conditions that made no coherent sense whatsoever. What made the situation even more disorienting was that everything else about Voyager 1 appeared completely normal. The spacecraft continued collecting and transmitting valid scientific data about its surrounding environment in interstellar space without any apparent interruption. Its antenna remained accurately pointed at Earth, meaning the AACS itself was clearly still, doing its actual job correctly. The only thing wrong was the health report the system was sending back about itself, creating a strange, almost paradoxical situation where a system appeared to be malfunctioning and functioning perfectly at the exact same time. Voyager propulsion engineer Todd Barber later described just how disorienting that combination genuinely was for the team, admitting the group had been left flummoxed by the nonsensical attitude control telemetry, and explaining plainly that they couldn't get any usable health and safety information about the spacecraft's pointing or its thruster operations from the readings coming back. That's a significant problem for any mission, but it's an especially serious one for a spacecraft as old, as remote, and as physically unreachable as Voyager 1. Without reliable telemetry from the AACS, engineers had no direct way of confirming whether the system was truly healthy or quietly headed toward a more serious failure. For months, the team worked through the mystery largely blind, trying to diagnose a problem using nothing but external clues, since the very system meant to report on its own condition was the one producing unreliable information. Every round of troubleshooting came with the same brutal built-in delay that defines all communication with Voyager 1. A command sent from Earth takes over 20 hours just to reach the spacecraft, and any response takes another 20 hours or more to make its way back, meaning even a simple diagnostic test could easily consume the better part of 2 full days before engineers had any confirmation of whether it revealed anything useful. By late August of 2022, after months of painstaking investigation, the team finally traced the problem to its source, and the actual explanation turned out to be almost disarmingly simple once they found it. The AACS had started routing its telemetry data through an onboard computer that had stopped working correctly years earlier. That dead, malfunctioning computer was corrupting the information as it passed through, turning what should have been clean, structured telemetry into the garbled nonsense engineers had been staring at for months. Suzanne Dodd, Voyager's project manager, explained that once the team began to suspect this specific cause, they opted for a relatively low-risk solution, simply commanding the AACS to resume sending its telemetry data through the correct, properly functioning computer instead. That fix worked. Clean, coherent telemetry began flowing back from Voyager 1 almost immediately once the command took effect, restoring the team's ability to properly monitor one of the spacecraft's most critical systems. Dodd expressed genuine relief at the outcome, simply noting how happy the team was to have reliable telemetry back, and while also making clear the investigation wasn't fully closed. The team still needed to perform a complete memory readout of the AACS to review everything the system had been doing during the entire period it was misbehaving, hoping that deeper review might finally reveal what had caused the underlying routing error in the first place. And that's really the most interesting twist buried in this entire story. Solving the garbled data mystery didn't actually answer the original question of why it happened. Engineers still didn't know why the AACS had started sending its telemetry through a computer known to have stopped working years earlier in the first place. The leading theory at the time was that the AACS had likely received a faulty command generated by some other onboard computer, which would suggest there was a separate, still unidentified issue elsewhere in the spacecraft's aging systems, one that could potentially cause similar problems again in the future. Dodd captured the strange, layered nature of the situation with a line that's stuck with people following the mission ever since, remarking that a mystery like this is sort of par for the course at this particular stage of the Voyager mission. There's something genuinely fitting about that description. Voyager 1 has been operating for nearly 50 years now, built using hardware and engineering conventions from an era before most modern diagnostic tools even existed. Every fix the team manages to pull off has to work within incredibly tight constraints, extreme communication delays, severely limited remaining power, and systems so old that entire categories of expected failure modes simply weren't anticipated by anyone who originally designed them. Solving one mystery on a spacecraft. This old frequently means uncovering a smaller, quieter mystery hiding underneath it, a pattern that has defined this mission for decades and shows no real sign of stopping even now. What makes stories like this genuinely important to understand, beyond their appeal as engineering puzzles, is what they reveal about how much ongoing, careful attention it actually takes to keep a spacecraft this old still functioning and still scientifically useful. It's easy to think of Voyager 1 as simply drifting quietly through interstellar space, faithfully transmitting data home without much active intervention required. The reality is far more hands-on. Engineers back on Earth are constantly monitoring, diagnosing, and occasionally repairing decades-old systems from a distance of nearly 15 billion miles, using nothing but careful analysis and low-risk, well-reasoned commands sent across a gap that makes even simple troubleshooting an exercise in extended patience. This particular episode also fits into a broader pattern that's become almost a signature of the entire Voyager mission at this stage of its life. Time and again, something appears to go seriously wrong. Engineers spend weeks or months carefully working through the problem with extremely limited direct access to the hardware involved, and the eventual explanation turns out to be logical, traceable, and ultimately fixable, even when it involves genuinely aging, decades-old components behaving in ways nobody fully anticipated. It's a mission that has consistently rewarded patient, careful engineering over dramatic, high-risk interventions, precisely because the enormous communication delay leaves almost no room for anything else. Voyager 1 continues operating today, still gathering and transmitting genuine scientific data from interstellar space, still requiring careful, ongoing attention from the small team of engineers dedicated to keeping it alive as long as possible. Its power supply continues to decay gradually, and mission officials have had to make increasingly difficult decisions about which systems remain active as the available energy budget keeps shrinking year after year. Every mystery successfully solved, including this strange, months-long stretch of garbled nonsense from a critical control system, buys the mission a little more time and a little more confidence that whatever unexpected problem shows up next can be understood and addressed before it becomes something more serious. If a story like this, a 50-year-old spacecraft appearing to lose its mind for months before quietly, logically explaining itself from nearly 15 billion miles away, is the kind of thing that genuinely fascinates you, go ahead and subscribe. Drop a comment letting me know what you think caused that original faulty command in the first place. And stick around, because there's a very real chance this remarkable spacecraft still has more mysteries like this one waiting to be solved.